"Help me!" screamed the millionaire's daughter, tied up in a room by the stepmother and what the butler did. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Let's begin. In an isolated mansion in one of Charleston's most exclusive neighborhoods, silence reigned with elegance. White walls, tall windows with imported linen curtains, sophisticated furniture and artificial floral scents created the perfect backdrop for a life that, at first glance, exuded refinement. But behind the heavy doors and impeccably waxed corridors, something was deeply out of place. The household routine followed a rigid, almost choreographed pattern, especially when the patriarch, Edward Ashton, was not present. An influential real estate entrepreneur, he frequently traveled abroad, overseeing developments and meetings with international investors. His constant absence left the mansion under the absolute control of Camilla, his second wife, a woman of impeccable appearance, serene tone of voice, and the posture of a traditional socialite. To Charleston's high society, Camilla was the image of the perfect wife. The charity dinners she organized were talked about in social columns. Her presence at cultural events was sought after, and the volunteer work she claimed to perform was praised by all. But to Annabelle, Edward's 7-year-old daughter, she was something else entirely. On that January afternoon, the typical heat of the South Carolina low country made even the mansion's air conditioning seem insufficient. Annabelle watched from her bedroom window as the family driver took her father to the airport. A new trip, this time to Dubai, 2 weeks away. The girl hugged her teddy bear tighter. It was the only gift she still had from her biological mother, who had left when she was only 3 years old. Mrs. Josephine, the housekeeper who had worked in the house for over 20 years, noticed the sadness in the child's eyes. She approached slowly, distractedly arranging a few objects in the room. "Your father will be back soon, child. Don't be like this. He always says that. But then he calls to say he'll be longer," Annabelle replied, without looking away from the gate that was now closing, taking away her only protection. The atmosphere inside the mansion changed instantly after Edward's car disappeared around the corner. Camilla, who moments before had been waving with an affectionate smile, hardened her expression and began to issue orders in a drier tone. The first one, directed at Annabelle. "Go to your room and organize your books. I don't want any noise today. I have an important charity committee meeting." The girl obeyed without question, already knowing the consequences of any kind of challenge. Her frail body and constantly alert eyes revealed that something was not right, but her appearance was still enough for everything to seem normal to an outsider. That same day, Mr. August, the butler who had worked at the mansion for decades, noticed a different behavior in Annabelle during dinner. The girl, normally quiet, seemed even more withdrawn. She barely touched her food and, when questioned by Camilla, simply said she wasn't hungry. "That's bad manners," Camilla reprimanded with a restrained smile, controlling her tone. "Mrs. Josephine prepared this dinner especially for you. If you don't eat, you'll be grounded in your room." "Let the girl be, ma'am," Mrs. Josephine intervened. "Perhaps she's just tired." The look Camilla shot the housekeeper was enough to end any attempt at defense. August sensed the tension in the air and, as usual, remained silent, observing. However, something about that scene stuck in his memory. In the middle of the night, while making his usual rounds of the house, August heard a muffled sound coming from the second-floor hallway. It was a faint, repetitive murmur, a child's voice that seemed to be asking for help. He hesitated for a few seconds, then quietly went up the stairs. The sound was coming from Annabelle's room. He approached slowly, putting his ear to the door. The murmurs had stopped. He knocked gently, but there was no response. He considered opening the door, but knew it could cause trouble. Camilla had strict rules about the privacy of the bedrooms, especially Annabelle's. August decided not to insist that night. The next day, during breakfast, he watched Annabelle more closely. The girl had deep, dark circles under her eyes, and her face seemed paler than usual. She ate in silence, mechanically obeying Camilla's orders about posture and etiquette. "The tutors are coming this afternoon," Camilla announced, consulting her schedule. "I want you to be impeccable for your piano and French lessons." "Yes, Mom," Annabelle replied without looking up from her plate. Since Edward had married Camilla, Annabelle had been withdrawn from her traditional school. The new wife had convinced her husband that private tutoring would be more suitable for a child of her social standing. This meant that Annabel rarely left the property, except to accompany her parents to specific events, always under the watchful eye of her stepmother. That same morning, Mrs. Josephine found August in the kitchen, preparing the tea to be served in the garden. "Something's wrong with the girl," the housekeeper commented in a low voice. "She's getting thinner and quieter every day." "I've noticed that too," August replied. "Last night I heard strange noises coming from her room." "Mrs. Camilla changed the locks on all the bedrooms," Josephine informed him. "She said it's to ensure security, but I find it strange. She kept all the keys to Annabel's room." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Camilla, who entered the kitchen with her elegant and precise stride. "Tea will be served in the study, not the garden," she said. "I have a video conference in 15 minutes. And Annabel needs to finish her math exercises before her afternoon lessons." As he prepared the tea according to the new instructions, August reflected on the changes in the house since Edward's marriage to Camilla about 2 years ago. Edward's first wife, Marianne, had been a cheerful and affectionate woman from what he remembered. The mansion used to be full of laughter and music. Her unexpected departure left a void that Edward tried to fill with work and travel. Annabel, still very young, was left in the care of the household staff. When Camilla arrived, bringing with her an air of renewal, everyone thought it would be good for Annabel to have a mother figure again. In the first few months, the impression was positive. Camilla seemed dedicated to the girl's adjustment, buying gifts, organizing outings, showing interest in her activities. However, as soon as the marriage was official, something subtle began to change. Annabel's behavior, once cheerful and spontaneous, became restrained and cautious. Playtime in the garden was replaced by hours of study and etiquette lessons. Outings became increasingly rare, until they stopped completely. And when Edward was home, Camilla transformed into the most attentive and caring stepmother imaginable. Days later, while organizing old papers in the laundry room storage, August found a torn piece of paper among the cleaning supplies. It was a child's note written in shaky letters saying only, "Aunt Rita, take me away from here." The name was not familiar to him. There was no Rita among the staff or close family, but the fact that it had been hidden immediately caught his attention. Rita was the name of the younger sister of Marianne, Annabel's biological mother. She lived in New York City and rarely visited, especially after Edward's new marriage. August remembered her as a cheerful young woman who was very close to her niece. Her last visit had been over a year ago, when she showed up unannounced and was received with evident coldness by Camilla. August discreetly showed the note to Mrs. Josephine, who also found it strange. "The girl must be missing her aunt," the housekeeper commented. "But this business of asking to be taken away, it sounds like desperation." "Have you noticed how she's getting thinner?" August asked, "even with access to all this high-quality food?" "I have," Josephine replied, lowering her voice even more. "And there's something else strange. Camilla gives Annabel medicine every night. She says they're vitamins prescribed by the doctor, but I've never seen an appointment scheduled for that." "Let's watch more closely," August decided, "but carefully. Mrs. Camilla has eyes and ears in every corner of this house." Annabel's behavior became increasingly withdrawn. The drawings that once showed colorful landscapes and happy figures now depicted closed shapes without doors and female shadows with stern expressions. The art teacher commented on the change, but Camilla quickly attributed it to the girl's natural phase of introspection. One morning, while tidying Annabel's room during her lessons, Mrs. Josephine noticed that the vitamin pills Camilla personally gave the girl had been swapped. Instead of the usual colorful tablets, there were transparent capsules with a white powder inside. The housekeeper pretended not to notice, but saved one of the capsules in a handkerchief hidden in her uniform pocket. That same week, during bath time, Josephine noticed marks on Annabel's arms and ankles. When questioned, the girl looked away and just said she had fallen during ballet class. But there were no ballet classes scheduled that week. Dr. Paul Miller, the family physician, made regular visits to the mansion to monitor the health of all residents, a tradition maintained by Edward since his father's time. During a routine checkup, the doctor commented privately to Mrs. Josephine that Annabel was showing signs of mild malnutrition and anxiety. "Is she eating well?" the doctor asked. "The meals are prepared with great care," Josephine replied cautiously. but she rarely finishes what's on her plate. And how is her appetite? It's decreased quite a bit in recent months. Mrs. Camilla says it's just a phase, but, the doctor encouraged. Nothing, doctor. Just the observations of a worried old woman. Dr. Miller made detailed notes and prescribed a nutritional supplement, handing the prescription directly to Josephine. I'd like you to administer this yourself in the morning and at night, and keep me informed of any changes. The look the doctor gave the housekeeper made it clear that he also suspected something was not right. The situation began to become clearer one afternoon, when Camilla went to visit her sick mother in Mount Pleasant, a town neighboring Charleston. It was one of the rare occasions she left without Annabelle. Taking advantage of her absence, August decided to check the girl's room more thoroughly. Assisted by Josephine, who stood guard in the hallway, he carefully examined the environment. The room was impeccable, almost impersonal for a 7-year-old child. Few toys, all arranged symmetrically on the shelves. Textbooks and children's literature classics, in several languages. Clothes folded with precision in the closet. It was then that August noticed something strange on the wall near the bed. A small, almost imperceptible hole seemed to have been made recently. Following his instinct, he examined the adjacent room, used as storage for seasonal items. Behind a shelf, he found an old surveillance device connected to a camera pointed directly at Annabelle's bed. Beside it, a box with personal items, a diary with torn-out pages, broken toys, and, most disturbingly, a piece of rope with knots. Good Lord, August muttered, documenting everything with his phone. In that same compartment, he found empty medicine vials with partially scraped-off labels. One of them still retained part of the name, Sedatin. It wasn't a vitamin, but a potent sedative, usually prescribed for adults with severe anxiety disorders. When Annabelle returned from her lessons that afternoon, she seemed even more dejected than usual. She sat at the kitchen table while Mrs. Josephine prepared a snack. "How was class today, my flower?" the housekeeper asked, trying to sound casual. "Normal," the girl replied, distractedly poking at the fruit cut in front of her. "Mrs. Camilla won't be back until tonight," Josephine commented. "Want to take a walk in the garden after your snack? It's been a while since I've seen you playing out there." Annabelle looked up, a spark of interest quickly replaced by apprehension. "I can't," she said. "I have to stay in my room and study." "Just a little while won't hurt." "I'll stay with you." The girl hesitated, then shook her head. "She'll know. She always knows." "What do you mean, my dear?" Annabelle looked around as if checking if they were truly alone and whispered, "She has eyes in the walls. And she told me that if I tell anyone about the punishments, she'll send my daddy far away and I'll never see him again." Josephine's heart ached. "What punishments, Annabelle?" The girl immediately shut down. "None. Forget what I said. Can I go back to my room now? I need to finish my homework." When Camilla returned, she brought gifts for Annabelle. New books, an elegant dress, an expensive doll. The performance of the loving stepmother continued flawlessly. She praised the dinner, asked about the day's lessons, commented on how her stepdaughter was starting to look like her father. But August and Josephine could now clearly see the terror in the girl's eyes behind the forced smiles. The last straw came on a stormy night, typical of a Charleston summer. The pool area alarm went off 3 times in a row around 2 in the morning. The security cameras captured only the silhouette of Annabelle, running along the side of the house barefoot, desperately trying to open the electronic gate that led to the street. What was most disturbing was Camilla's reaction. Instead of showing concern, she remained seated on the covered porch, watching the scene as if it were a private spectacle. When security finally caught up with the girl and brought her back, drenched and trembling, Camilla simply said, "Take her to her room and lock the door. We will discuss this unacceptable behavior tomorrow." The next morning, Camilla explained to the staff that Annabelle had recurring nightmares and sometimes sleepwalked. According to her, the psychologist who was treating her was already aware and working on the issue. However, no one in the house had ever seen such a psychologist. "The girl is playing at escaping," Camilla said with a restrained smile during breakfast. Dramatic fantasies. A trait from her mother, no doubt. August and Josephine exchanged glances. That was the final straw. They could no longer pretend nothing was happening. Annabelle did not appear for breakfast that morning, nor for lunch. Camilla claimed she was resting after the night's episode. When they were finally able to see her late in the afternoon, The girl was even paler and seemed drugged. She spoke with difficulty and could barely keep her eyes open. A reaction to the anxiety medication, Camilla explained to the tutors who arrived for the lessons. The doctor said it's normal in the first few days. We'd better cancel today's activities. August took advantage of a quick trip for groceries to make a call from a public phone. The contact was an old friend of his late wife, Francesca Carter, a social worker with years of experience in child protection. "I need your help," he said, after checking that no one was watching him. "It's urgent and confidential." "Of course, August. What's happened?" "I can't go into detail over the phone, but there's a child in danger. I'm gathering evidence." "I understand. Where can we meet?" "At the Corner Cafe tomorrow at 10. It's important that no one knows about this conversation." "I'll be there." Upon returning to the mansion, August found an unexpected situation. Camilla had fired one of the maids, accusing her of theft. The woman, who had worked at the house for over 5 years, left in tears, vehemently denying the accusation. "It's a warning," Josephine commented when they were alone. "She's suspicious." "All the more reason to act fast," August replied. "The witch hunt has begun." That night, while serving dinner, August noticed that Camilla was watching him more closely than usual. Her eyes, usually cold and calculating, now conveyed a clear message. She knew she was being investigated. "August," she called as he poured the wine. "How long have you worked for the Ashton family?" "Almost 30 years, Mom. A lifetime of dedication. It would be a shame if something were to threaten your peaceful retirement, don't you think?" The veiled threat hung in the air. August maintained his composure. "Yes, ma'am. But my greatest concern has always been the well-being of the family I serve." "I'm glad you think so," Camilla replied, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Because family is everything, isn't it? And we must protect it from any threat." As he retreated to the kitchen, August felt a chill. The game was just beginning, and Camilla had made it clear she would not back down easily. But neither would he. The image of Annabelle, pale and frightened, reinforced his determination. That child needed help, and he would do everything in his power to save her from that woman's clutches. In the dead of night, August and Josephine met in the service area, away from the cameras they knew existed in the main rooms. There they began to organize what they had already discovered. It was time to act before it was too late. The next morning, August left the mansion with the excuse of handling household supply matters. The Corner Cafe, located in the Harleston Village neighborhood, was a discreet establishment, frequented mainly by professionals and university students. August arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the back with a clear view of the entrance. Francesca Carter appeared punctually. She was a middle-aged woman with practically cut grey hair, simple framed glasses, and a posture that conveyed confidence. Upon seeing her, August felt a momentary sense of relief. If anyone could help Annabelle, it was Francesca. "Thank you for coming," he said after they ordered 2 coffees. "Your call worried me," she replied. "You mentioned a child in danger." August looked around, making sure no one was watching them, and then began to recount everything: Camilla's behavior, the changes in Annabelle, the suspicious medications, the signs of confinement, the hidden camera, the girl's escape attempt. As he spoke, he noticed Francesca's expression hardening. "Do you have concrete proof of all this?" she asked when he finished. "Some. I photographed the surveillance device. I saved one of the capsules that were given to the girl as vitamins. I have the note asking for help. And the house's security system recorded the escape attempt." "This is extremely serious, August. We are talking about a possible situation of psychological abuse and neglect. We need to act cautiously but quickly. What do you suggest? First, let's document everything properly. Then I'll make an unofficial visit to the residence. I know some techniques for evaluating children in these situations without raising suspicion. Camilla is extremely astute. She'll notice. That's why we need to be smarter. I'll introduce myself as a representative of an NGO that offers educational programs for privileged children, something related to social responsibility that will appeal to the image she wants to project." "Could work," August conceded. "She's obsessed with keeping up appearances. In the meantime, continue to observe and document. If possible, get a sample of that medication for analysis. And most importantly, don't risk your job. You are that girl's eyes and ears inside that house." August nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. Francesca handed him a small digital recorder. Use this to record relevant conversations. It's discreet and high quality. It could be our best weapon. When he returned to the mansion, August found Mrs. Josephine visibly agitated. What happened? He asked as soon as they were alone in the pantry. Mrs. Camilla took Annabelle for medical tests. She said the girl is having episodes of hallucination and needs specialized treatment. Hallucination? That's absurd. She mentioned that Annabelle has been talking about people who want to take her away and that this is a clear sign of psychological instability. My God. She's laying the groundwork, August muttered, creating a narrative to defend herself if the truth comes out. There's more, Josephine continued, lowering her voice even further. I heard her on the phone with Dr. Miller, asking for a prescription for a stronger medication. When he questioned it, she said another doctor had recommended it, a specialist from New York City. And what did he say? That he needed to see Annabelle in person before prescribing anything. At least there's that, August sighed. Dr. Miller is a man of integrity. But I'm afraid of what she might do, August. The way she looks at the girl. Sometimes it seems like there's a deep hatred there. I spoke with a social worker. She'll be making a visit in the next few days, disguised as a representative of an NGO. We need to make sure Annabelle is present and, if possible, has some time alone with Francesca. I'll do my best. But Camilla rarely leaves the girl alone with strangers. Then we'll need to create a distraction. The next day, as planned, Francesca Carter arrived at the Ashton mansion. She was dressed elegantly but discreetly, carrying a folder of documents and a professional smile. She was received by Camilla in the main drawing room. Mrs. Ashton, thank you for receiving me, Francesca said, introducing herself as the coordinator of a new educational program for privileged children. Our goal is to build bridges between different social realities, offering opportunities for human and social development for elite youth. Camilla listened attentively, her face a mask of cordial interest. It sounds fascinating. And how would this program work? While Francesca explained the fictitious details of the program, August served coffee and pastries, discreetly observing the interaction. Camilla seemed genuinely interested, not in the program itself, but in the opportunity to further polish her social image. I would love for my stepdaughter to participate, Camilla said with her rehearsed smile. Annabelle is an extremely privileged child, and I believe it would be valuable for her to develop this social awareness from an early age. Would it be possible to meet her? Francesca asked. I like to speak directly with the children before starting any process. An almost imperceptible shadow crossed Camilla's face, but she quickly regained her composure. Of course. She's having her piano lesson right now, but I can call her. When Annabelle entered the room, the change in atmosphere was palpable. The girl looked like a small adult, dressed in clothes too formal for her age, her hair impeccably styled, her posture rigid. Her eyes, however, reflected a deep sadness. Annabelle, this is Mrs. Carter. She's here to talk about a special educational program. The girl gave a small curtsy, exactly as she had been taught. A pleasure to meet you. Mrs. Carter, the pleasure is all mine, Annabelle. Francesca replied with a genuine smile. Your stepmother told me you play the piano. Do you like music? Before answering, Annabelle glanced quickly at Camilla, as if seeking approval. Yes, ma'am. I've been studying piano for 2 years. That's wonderful. And besides the piano, what else do you like to do? Again, the glance at Camilla. I study French, advanced mathematics, and classic literature. Impressive, Francesca commented. And for fun? Do you play with other children? Do you have any hobbies? The question caught Annabelle off guard. It was clear she was not prepared to talk about fun or friendships. I like to draw, she said finally, with a momentary spark of spontaneity. Drawing is an activity for her spare time, Camilla interrupted smoothly. Annabelle has a very full schedule of studies. We believe in the importance of a solid foundation from an early age. Francesca nodded, making notes. I understand perfectly. And what is your routine like, Annabelle? Tell me a little about your day-to-day. At that moment, following the prearranged plan, August discreetly approached Camilla. Ma'am, please forgive the interruption. The florist just called to confirm the delivery for tomorrow's charity event, but there's a problem with the Thai orchids. Camilla's face showed immediate concern. The orchids were a central element of the event's decor she was organizing, an opportunity to stand out even more in Charleston's social circle. "Excuse me, Mrs. Carter, I need to resolve this matter. It's a very important event for the community." As soon as Camilla left the room to take the fabricated phone call, Francesca seized the few minutes alone with Annabelle. "You seem like a very special girl," she said, moving closer. "It must be tiring to study so many different things." Annabelle shrugged, a surprisingly childlike gesture for someone so restrained. "I liked school better," she murmured. "I had friends there. Do you miss them?" The girl nodded, looking at the door through which Camilla had left. "You seem worried about something," Francesca observed gently. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" Annabelle hesitated, nervously fidgeting with the hem of her dress. "I can't. She has eyes and ears everywhere." "Who?" "My stepmother. What happens when you talk about things she doesn't want you to talk about?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I get punished. Sometimes without food. And she says she'll send my daddy away forever if I tell." Francesca nodded, maintaining a neutral expression despite her internal alarm. "I see. And the punishments? Can you tell me more about them?" "There's the dark room," Annabelle whispered, now trembling slightly. "It's a closet with no windows. She locks me in there when I do something wrong. And there are the pills that make me sleep a lot. And—" The conversation was cut short by the sound of approaching heels. Quickly, Francesca changed the subject. "So do you think you could draw a picture about what we talked about today? About friendship and solidarity?" Annabelle understood the cue and nodded, discreetly wiping her tears. When Camilla returned, she found a seemingly innocent scene. Francesca showing colorful brochures to Annabelle, who was looking at them with forced interest. "I've solved the orchid problem," Camilla announced, resuming her seat. "Where were we?" "I was explaining our social projects to Annabelle. She seems very receptive to the idea." "Excellent. And when would this program start?" "In 2 weeks. We would need the parents' formal authorization, of course. My husband is traveling for work, but I have power of attorney to sign for Annabelle. We can take care of that right now." Francesca smiled, hiding her concern. "Wonderful. I'll leave all the documentation and will return next week to formalize everything." As she was leaving, Francesca managed to discreetly hand Annabelle a small card with her phone number, disguised as an educational bookmark. The look they exchanged contained a silent promise of help. As soon as Francesca left, August noticed a subtle change in Camilla. Her cordial smile gave way to a calculating expression as she watched Annabelle. "Go to your room and continue your studies," she ordered the girl. "I have important things to attend to." That evening, while serving dinner, August noticed that Camilla was quieter than usual. She ate distractedly, frequently checking her phone. Annabelle was not at the table. She had been served earlier in her room, something that was becoming increasingly common. "August," Camilla called suddenly, "how long has that social worker been your friend?" The butler's heart nearly stopped, but decades of professional discretion allowed him to maintain a neutral expression. "Pardon me, ma'am? Don't play the fool with me. I recognized Francesca Carter from Child Protective Services. Did you really think I wouldn't research her after she left?" August felt his blood run cold. Camilla knew. "Ma'am, I really don't understand." "Enough of the theatrics," she cut in, placing her napkin on the table. "I know exactly what you and that meddling old woman Josephine are trying to do. You think you can interfere in my family? In the upbringing I've chosen for Annabelle, Mrs. Camilla, our only interest is the girl's well-being," August replied, abandoning the pretense. "Well-being?" Camilla's laugh was cold. "You have no idea what's best for her. I am saving Annabelle from becoming weak and foolish like her mother. That woman didn't have the fortitude to be Edward's wife, much less the mother of his heiress." "You are mistaken, ma'am. What you do to Annabelle is not education, it's cruelty." Camilla's face transformed, all pretense of refinement vanishing. "You're fired. I want you out of this house by noon tomorrow." "You can't do that, ma'am. I've worked for the Ashton family for decades. Only Mr. Edward can fire me." "We'll see about that. Now get out of my sight before I call security." August withdrew, but instead of going to his quarters at the back of the property, he went straight to the kitchen, where he found Josephine waiting anxiously. "She's found out everything," he informed her, his voice low but urgent. "She knows about Francesca. She tried to fire me. My God, Josephine murmured. What will we do now? We need to get Annabelle out of here as soon as possible. I'm afraid of what Camilla might do now that she feels cornered. But how? She'll surely be watching our every move. I have an idea, August said after a few seconds of reflection. But it's risky and we'll need outside help. The night progressed, tense and silent in the Ashton mansion. Around 11 p.m., August managed to make a confidential call to Francesca reporting the situation. The social worker listened with growing alarm. She knows who I am, Francesca confirmed. I received a threatening call less than an hour ago. She mentioned lawsuits for defamation and invasion of privacy. We need to act now. Tomorrow may be too late. I agree. I'm activating the protection network. Can you keep Annabelle safe until the morning? I'll do my best. But Camilla is unstable. I've never seen her like this. Keep the recorder on at all times. Any additional proof will be crucial now. As they spoke, neither of them noticed a shadow moving down the hallway. Mrs. Josephine, who was standing guard, was caught by surprise when Camilla suddenly appeared in front of her. Eavesdropping, Josephine? The housekeeper backed away, startled. I was just checking that everything was in order before retiring, ma'am. Liar, Camilla hissed. All of you lying and conspiring against me. But you won't succeed. Annabelle is my responsibility, mine to shape and educate as I see fit. You're mistaken, ma'am, Josephine tried, taking another step back. No one is conspiring against anything. Enough, Camilla exclaimed, her voice controlled but intense. You're fired, too. I want all the traitors out of my house immediately. I'll hire a new loyal staff. Ma'am, it's after 11 at night. We can't just— Now! The shout echoed through the silent mansion. From somewhere on the second floor, a muffled child's sob was heard. August, alerted by the shout, ran to the hallway, finding Josephine pale and Camilla distraught. What is going on here? He asked. What's going on is I've discovered your conspiracy, Camilla replied. You're all fired. I want you out of here right now. Mrs. Camilla, be reasonable. It's night time. We have nowhere to go at this hour. That's your problem. Leave or I'll call the police. If you call the police, August intervened calmly, we'll have to explain the reason for the disturbance, including how you've been treating Annabelle. Camilla's face paled momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. You have no proof of anything. It will be the word of disgruntled employees against a respectable member of Charleston society. August took his phone from his pocket. Actually, we do have proof. A lot of it. Camilla hesitated, assessing the situation. What do you want? To stay until tomorrow, when Mr. Edward returns from his trip. He will decide who stays and who goes. Edward? Camilla laughed nervously. He's in Dubai. He's not back until next week. Not according to his secretary, who informed me he's returning early. Apparently your husband is concerned about some recent developments. It was a bluff, but it worked. Uncertainty took hold of Camilla. Fine, she finally conceded. You can stay until tomorrow, but I don't want to see any of you wandering around the house unnecessarily. And stay away from Annabelle. As Camilla walked away, August whispered to Josephine, prepare for a long night. I don't trust her. And Annabelle. She's alone in her room, vulnerable. I'll stand guard near the stairs. If Camilla tries anything, I'll intervene immediately. The dawn crept in slowly and tensely. Around 3 a.m, August, who was discreetly keeping watch in the second-floor hallway, noticed movement in Annabelle's room. He approached silently, putting his ear to the door. The sound was unmistakable, a child's muffled crying and Camilla's voice, low but threatening. Stop crying. Stop it right now or I'll give you a real reason to cry. I want my daddy, Annabelle sobbed. Your daddy isn't here. You only have me, and if you don't obey, you'll never see him again. Understand? I'll make you disappear just like I did with that ridiculous teddy bear. August didn't need to hear anymore. He used the master key he kept for emergencies and opened the door without hesitation. The scene he found chilled his blood. Annabelle was sitting on the bed, trembling, while Camilla held an open suitcase, putting some of the girl's clothes inside. What are you doing? August asked, keeping his voice firm despite his racing heart. Camilla turned, surprised, but quickly regained her composure. I'm preparing Annabelle for a trip. We've decided it would be best for her to study at a boarding school for a while. At 3 a.m? Without informing her father. These are family decisions that do not concern you, August. Annabel looked at the butler with pleading eyes, her face stained with recent tears. "Mr. August, please," she whispered. "Don't let her take me." "No one is taking you anywhere, Annabel," he assured her, stepping fully into the room. "Not without your father's express permission." "Get out of this room now," Camilla ordered, her voice trembling with rage. "This is an invasion of privacy. I'm not leaving. And you are not taking Annabel anywhere tonight." The standoff was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Josephine and one of the property's security guards. Alerted by the noise, "What's going on here?" the guard asked, confused by the scene. "Joseph," Camilla addressed the guard, "remove this man from the room immediately. He is interfering in family matters." The guard hesitated, looking from Camilla to August, then to the visibly frightened girl on the bed. "Ma'am, I believe it would be best if we resolve this in the morning." "With cooler heads," he suggested diplomatically. "You too?" Camilla hissed. "Is everyone in this house against me?" "No one is against you, ma'am," Josephine intervened. "We just want what's best for everyone, especially Annabel." "You don't know what's best for her," Camilla shouted, completely losing control. "No one does. She's just like her mother, weak, whiny, spineless. She needs discipline, rigidity. If she continues like this, she'll end up like Marianne, unstable and useless." The mention of Annabel's biological mother caused a shocked silence in the room. It was at that moment that everyone noticed August's phone on the dresser, recording everything. Camilla's face transformed as she realized the trap. In an impulse, she lunged for the device, but August was faster. "I believe we have everything we need," he said calmly. "Joseph, please escort Mrs. Camilla to the drawing room. We need to have a serious talk." The security guard, now clearly on August and Josephine's side, nodded. "Ma'am, let's go downstairs, please." Defeated for the moment but still furious, Camilla shot a final venomous look at Annabel. "This isn't over," she muttered. "You are still my responsibility." As soon as Camilla was led out, Josephine rushed to hug Annabel, who finally allowed herself to cry openly. "It's all right now, my flower. No one is going to hurt you or take you away." August picked up his phone and immediately called Francesca. "We have an emergency." Camilla tried to take Annabel from the house in the middle of the night. "We managed to stop her, but the situation is critical." "I'm on my way with the team from Child Protective Services," Francesca replied. "Keep everyone involved in the house. And August, be careful. Women like Camilla can be extremely dangerous when cornered." While they waited, Josephine prepared a calming tea for Annabel and stayed by her side, telling soft stories to distract her. The girl, exhausted by the emotional stress, finally fell asleep, holding tightly to the housekeeper's hand. Downstairs, Camilla sat in the main drawing room, discreetly watched by Joseph. August took the opportunity to check the stepmother's room, looking for more evidence. He found a folder with falsified medical documents, suggesting that Annabel suffered from personality disorder and mythomaniacal tendencies, technical terms to justify the improper medication and isolation. More disturbing was finding a bottle of potent sleeping pills, recently acquired, with a dosage clearly unsuitable for a child. The label had been removed, but August recognized the pills. They were the same ones he had seen Camilla administer to Annabel, disguised as vitamins. Around 5 in the morning, the sound of approaching cars was heard. Francesca Carter had arrived, accompanied by 2 CPS counselors and a doctor specializing in the evaluation of child abuse victims. "Where is the girl?" Francesca asked as soon as she entered. "In her room sleeping. Mrs. Josephine is with her. And the stepmother. In the drawing room under watch." "Excellent. I'll speak with her first, with the counselors as witnesses. Dr. Ricardo will go up to evaluate Annabel as soon as she wakes up." Camilla, upon seeing the group enter the room, tried to compose herself, assuming her usual posture of a society lady. "This is trespassing," she declared. "I'm calling my lawyer immediately." "Feel free," Francesca replied coldly. "Mrs. Camilla Ashton, we are here representing Child Protective Services in response to a serious report of abuse against your stepdaughter, Annabel Ashton." "This is absurd. Who made such an accusation? Based on what?" "We have substantial evidence, including testimonies, questionable medical records, and an attempt at unauthorized removal of the child in the middle of the night." I am her stepmother. I have every right to decide on her education and well-being. In the father's absence, yes, you have certain rights, but those rights do not include confinement, unprescribed medication, food deprivation, or psychological intimidation. The confrontation continued heatedly, with Camilla alternating between legal threats and vehement denials. Meanwhile, upstairs, Dr. Ricardo was speaking gently with Annabelle, who had woken up startled by the movement in the house. "Hello, Annabelle. My name is Ricardo. I'm a doctor, and I'm here to talk with you for a bit. Is that okay?" The girl looked at Josephine for reassurance, and the housekeeper nodded encouragingly. "It's all right, my flower. The doctor just wants to help." During the conversation, Dr. Ricardo asked simple questions about the girl's routine, her meals, her sleep, her activities. With skill and patience, he got Annabelle to talk about the special pills that made her feel strange and sleepy, about the punishments in the dark room, and about how she was forbidden to talk to her father about anything that happened in the house during his absence. The doctor also performed a basic physical exam, documenting the marks on the girl's wrists and ankles, signs consistent with physical restraint. The state of mild malnutrition was also recorded, as well as signs of sleep deprivation. When he came downstairs, his expression was grave. He met with Francesca and the counselors in a separate room, reporting his findings. "It's a clear case of psychological abuse and neglect," he concluded. "The girl presents all the signs: malnutrition, physical marks consistent with restraint, excessive fear, submissive behavior, and indications of having been inappropriately medicated. What is your recommendation?" One of the counselors asked. "Immediate removal from the abusive environment. The child is not safe here, especially under the care of her stepmother." Francesca nodded, taking notes. "We'll begin the procedures for an emergency protective order. In the meantime, we need to decide where Annabelle will stay." "I can take care of her," Josephine offered immediately. "The girl knows me and trusts me." "That's a possibility," Francesca agreed. "But we need a neutral location, outside of Mrs. Camilla's influence." It was at that moment that August's phone rang. It was Edward Ashton's secretary. "Mr. August?" "Mr. Edward has just landed at the airport. He asked me to let you know he's on his way to the mansion." August's heart leaped. "Does he know what's happening?" "Partially. I mentioned the emergency call I received from you yesterday. He moved up his flight immediately." "Thank God," August murmured. "Tell him we're in a critical situation, but that Annabelle is safe now." When he hung up, he informed everyone of Edward's imminent arrival. "This changes everything," Francesca observed. "With the father present, we can establish protective measures more quickly. Or he might defend his wife," one of the counselors warned. "Many parents deny the abuse, especially when it comes from a spouse." "I've known Edward Ashton for decades," August said. "He has his flaws, including being absent too much, but he loves his daughter deeply. When he sees the proof, I have no doubt he'll make the right decision." The wait for Annabelle's father was tense. Camilla, realizing the situation was slipping from her control, demanded to speak with her lawyer, who was contacted but informed them he would only arrive in a few hours. Around 7 in the morning, the sound of a car screeching to a halt at the mansion's entrance alerted everyone. Edward Ashton, a man of imposing stature, entered the house with an expression of concern and confusion. "What is going on here?" he asked, looking around at the unfamiliar faces. "August, Camilla, where is my daughter?" Camilla ran to her husband, calculated tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Edward, thank God you're here. These employees have plotted against me, made up horrible stories, and brought these people into our home." Edward looked at Camilla, then at August, confused. "What stories? What is she talking about?" "Sir," August began, his voice firm despite his nervousness, "something serious has been happening in this house during your trips. Something involving Annabelle and the way she has been treated." Edward's gaze shifted between Camilla and August, trying to process the situation. His expression changed from confusion to growing concern. "Where is Annabelle?" he asked again, this time more forcefully. "She's in her room with Mrs. Josephine," August replied. "She's safe now." "Safe? What do you mean, safe now?" "Can someone please explain exactly what is happening in my house?" Francesca Carter stepped forward, extending her hand professionally. "Mr. Ashton, I'm Francesca Carter, a social worker with Child Protective Services. We are here because we received a serious report of possible abuse against your daughter. Abuse? Edward turned pale. That's absurd. Who would do such a thing? Your wife, August answered directly. Mrs. Camilla has been subjecting Annabelle to a routine of isolation, improper medication, food deprivation, and inhumane punishments whenever you travel. Lies, Camilla shrieked. Edward, don't believe this. They are conspiring against me because I impose discipline in this house. Annabelle is a difficult child, you know that. She needs structure and rules. Edward raised a hand, signaling for silence. I want to see my daughter now. Of course, sir, August replied, leading the way to the staircase. Edward, Camilla called, desperation rising in her voice. Don't go alone. They might have manipulated Annabelle, put words in her mouth. Ignoring his wife's plea, Edward quickly ascended the stairs, followed by August, Francesca, and Dr. Ricardo. Camilla tried to follow, but was gently stopped by one of the CPS counselors. Mrs. Ashton, it would be best if you waited downstairs. In Annabelle's room, the scene Edward found broke his heart. His daughter, visibly gaunt and thinner than he remembered, was huddled on the bed, clinging to Josephine as if her life depended on it. Upon seeing her father, her eyes lit up momentarily, but then gave way to a cautious, almost fearful expression. Daddy? She called in a weak voice. Is it really you? Edward approached slowly, kneeling beside the bed. Yes, Princess, it's me. I came back early. Everything is okay now. Annabelle glanced quickly at the door, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. She's not here, Edward assured her, sensing his daughter's fear. No one is going to hurt you. Can you tell me what happened? The girl hesitated, looking to Josephine, who nodded encouragingly. She gives me pills that make me feel dizzy and sleepy, Annabelle began, the words coming out slowly. She locks me in the closet when I do something wrong. Sometimes I'm in there all day with no food. Edward closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath to control his emotions. What else, sweetheart? I can't play or talk loudly. I can't call you unless she's listening. She said if I told, she would send you away forever. Tears began to stream down Edward's face. Years of absence, of blind trust, of ignored signs paraded through his mind. And this only happens when I'm traveling? Annabelle nodded. When you're home, she's different. She smiles more, lets me have dessert, doesn't lock me in my room. Edward rose slowly, his face transformed by a mixture of pain and contained rage. Doctor. He addressed the physician, who was observing discreetly. What is your professional assessment? The signs are consistent with psychological abuse and neglect, Dr. Ricardo replied. The girl presents with mild malnutrition, signs of sleep deprivation, and marks consistent with physical restraint on her wrists and ankles. And the medicine she mentioned? Based on what we found in Annabelle's own account, we suspect they are adult-use sedatives, unsuitable for children and administered without a prescription. Edward ran a hand over his face, trying to absorb the horror of the situation. What happens now? He asked Francesca. Normally, in cases like this, we request an emergency protective order, and the child is temporarily removed from the at-risk environment while the investigation proceeds. Removed? You mean take her to a shelter? That is one possibility, but there are alternatives. Since you are present and not accused of participating in the abuse, Annabelle could remain under your exclusive custody, provided that Mrs. Camilla is removed from the residence. Edward looked at his daughter, then at August and Josephine, who had stood by Annabelle throughout her suffering. I want to see all the evidence you have, he said finally. Every detail. Then I will make a decision. In the living room, Camilla paced back and forth, nervously checking the clock. Her lawyer had not yet arrived, and control of the situation was slipping through her fingers with each passing minute. When Edward came down the stairs, his gaze was unrecognizable to Camilla. The love and trust were gone, replaced by a calculated coldness that made her instinctively recoil. Edward, she tried, forcing a conciliatory tone, don't believe these lies. They are manipulating Annabelle. You know how suggestible children are. Enough, Camilla, he replied, his voice low but filled with restrained emotion. I saw the marks on her wrists and ankles. I saw the state my daughter is in. I heard from her own mouth what you have been doing. She's exaggerating. You know how dramatic Annabelle can be. Just like her mother. The mention of Marianne was a strategic error. Edward's face hardened even more. Don't you dare speak of her. Not now. Are you defending a woman who abandoned you? Who left her own child behind? Marianne didn't abandon anyone, Edward replied, his voice almost a whisper. She was sick. Postpartum depression that we never properly treated. She needed to be hospitalized and receive care I couldn't provide, while building the empire you so enjoy. The silence that followed was heavy. Everyone in the room seemed to hold their breath. Mr. Ashton, Francesca intervened gently. August mentioned you have recordings and other evidence. Edward nodded, turning to the butler. Show me everything. August connected his phone to a television in the library. There he played the recordings he had secretly made. Camilla yelling at Annabelle, threatening her, referring to her with derogatory terms. The hidden camera in the girl's room. The capsules replacing vitamins. The note asking for help. The footage of Annabelle's desperate escape attempt on the stormy night, with Camilla watching impassively. With each new revelation, Edward seemed to age years. When he finally finished watching everything, he remained silent for several long minutes. How could I have been so blind? He finally murmured. You trusted your wife, sir, August replied. She was meticulous in hiding everything and keeping up appearances. But there were signs. Annabelle changed so much in the last 2 years. She became quiet, shy, frightened, and I attributed it to missing her mother, to adjusting to Camilla, to anything but the obvious. Mr. Ashton, Francesca called, we need to decide on the next steps. Your daughter cannot remain in the same environment as Mrs. Camilla. I understand, Edward replied, standing with determination. I am going to ask Camilla to leave the house immediately. And if she refuses, then I will be the one to leave with Annabelle. But I will not let my daughter spend another minute under the same roof as that woman. When they returned to the living room, they found Camilla speaking in a low voice with a man in an impeccable suit. Her lawyer had finally arrived. Edward, she called, reassuming her concerned wife posture. This is Mr. Nelson Vance. He's going to help us clear up this terrible misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Camilla, Edward replied. I've seen the evidence. I know what you did to my daughter. Mr. Ashton, the lawyer intervened. My client vehemently denies any accusation of abuse. What we have here appears to be a case of disgruntled employees fabricating stories to damage Mrs. Camilla's reputation. Mr. Vance, Edward responded, I have recordings, medical reports, witnesses, and most importantly, Annabelle's own testimony. So please spare us the legal rhetoric and advise your client on the best way to leave my house within the next 2 hours. This is ridiculous, Camilla exclaimed. This house is mine too. You can't just kick me out like this. Actually, he can, Francesca corrected. Based on the evidence of abuse, we are issuing a protective order that prevents you from approaching Annabelle. If you prefer to remain in the house, it will be Annabelle who must be removed to a safe environment. This is illegal. It's an invasion of privacy, a conspiracy. Camilla was now screaming, completely losing her composure. You don't know who you're dealing with. I have connections, I have influence in this city. I have no doubt, Francesca replied calmly, but not even your connections can override a court order for the protection of a child. So, Mrs. Ashton, the choice is yours. Leave voluntarily, or we will be forced to remove Annabelle to a safe place. The lawyer placed a hand on Camilla's arm, trying to calm her. Ma'am, I advise you to cooperate for the moment. We can contest all of this legally later. The look Camilla gave her husband was filled with hatred and promises of revenge. You will regret this, Edward. I will destroy you and take everything, the house, the company, everything. You can have whatever you want, he replied, except my daughter. Under protest and threats, Camilla finally agreed to leave the mansion, accompanied by her lawyer. She was allowed to collect basic personal items, always under the supervision of one of the CPS counselors. Before leaving, she tried one last time to see Annabelle, claiming a right to say goodbye, but the request was denied. This isn't over, were her last words before getting into the lawyer's car. I haven't seen anything yet. When the vehicle finally disappeared through the gate, Edward felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Returning inside the house, he found Francesca and Dr. Riccardo finalizing reports. And now, he asked, what happens to Annabelle? She needs specialized psychological support, the doctor replied. The trauma doesn't simply disappear with the removal of the source of abuse. It will take time and patience. As for legal procedures, Francesca added, Child Protective Services will monitor the case closely. There will be regular visits to ensure Annabelle's well-being, and you will need to attend some hearings. I see. And what about Camilla? That depends on what you decide. You can proceed with a formal complaint, which will likely result in criminal charges for abuse. Or you can focus solely on protecting Annabelle with a restraining order and a divorce. Edward reflected for a moment. I need to think about what's best for my daughter. I don't want to subject her to more stress if I can avoid it. I understand perfectly. But remember, cases like this serve not only to punish the abuser, but also to prevent them from doing the same to other children in the future. Francesca's observation struck Edward deeply. The idea that Camilla could do to other children what she had done to Annabelle was unbearable. I will think about it carefully. For now, I just want to ensure my daughter is safe and begins to recover. That's a wise decision, Francesca agreed. Let's take it one step at a time. That afternoon, after the CPS team had left, with a promise to return the next day, Edward finally had a moment alone with August and Josephine in the kitchen. While Annabelle rested, I can never thank you enough for what you've done, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved my daughter while I was too blind to see what was happening right under my nose. We only did our duty, sir, August replied. We've always considered Annabelle part of our family. And I failed mine, Edward admitted. First with Marianne, then with Annabelle. I always put business first, believing that money and material comfort would compensate for my absence. You have a chance to start over now, Josephine said gently. Annabelle needs her father more than ever. Yes, and I intend to be present this time. I'm going to completely reorganize my life. The company will have to function without my constant presence. My priority now is to rebuild the bond with my daughter. At that moment, they heard light footsteps on the stairs. Annabelle appeared at the kitchen door, still in her pajamas, her eyes swollen from crying. Daddy? She called timidly. Can I stay with you? Edward opened his arms and the girl ran to him, clinging tightly, as if afraid he would disappear again. Always, princess. Always. The days that followed were ones of adjustment and adaptation. Edward cancelled all scheduled trips for the coming months and began working remotely from the mansion. Mrs. Josephine was officially promoted to head housekeeper, with the authority to reorganize the household routine in a healthier, more nurturing way. Annabelle began therapy with a child psychologist recommended by CPS. The first sessions were difficult. The girl was afraid to speak openly, fearing repercussions even with Camilla gone. But gradually, with patience and play-based techniques appropriate for her age, she began to open up and process the trauma she had experienced. A week after Camilla's departure, Edward received a visit from his lawyer, Mr. Henry Matthews, who brought news of the legal developments. Camilla has filed for an advanced division of assets and access to the mansion, the lawyer informed him, sitting in the library. She claims she was unjustly expelled from her residence. That was to be expected, Edward sighed. What do you advise? We can contest it based on the protective order. As for the assets, some kind of settlement will be inevitable, considering the community property regime of the marriage, but we can argue that there was a breach of marital duties on her part, which could influence the court's decision. Do whatever is necessary. Henry, I'm willing to compromise financially if it means peace for Annabelle. And what about the criminal charges for abuse? Edward hesitated. It was the most difficult decision. Proceeding with formal charges would mean exposing Annabelle to additional depositions and examinations, prolonging the trauma. On the other hand, letting Camilla go unpunished seemed morally unacceptable. What does Annabelle's psychologist say about it? Dr. Louise believes the legal process could be therapeutic for Annabelle as long as it's handled sensitively. Giving the girl a voice and validating her suffering can be an important part of healing, but she also stresses that Annabelle will need a great deal of support throughout the process. And if we choose not to press criminal charges, we can still maintain the restraining order and resolve everything in the civil sphere, which would be less taxing for Annabelle in the short term. But there's a risk that Camilla could reinterpret the situation as a victory, which could be detrimental to your daughter's emotional recovery. Edward massaged his temples, feeling the weight of the decision. I need to talk with Annabelle about this. Not explicitly, of course, but I want to get a sense of how she's recovering before making a final decision. Wise of you. In the meantime, I'll keep Camilla and her lawyer at bay with preliminary legal procedures. That afternoon, Edward took Annabelle for a walk in Hampton Park, one of the girls' favorite places before the nightmare began. It was the first time in a long while they had gone out together, just the two of them. Annabelle seemed simultaneously anxious and excited, constantly looking up at her father as if to check that he was still there. "Are you enjoying the walk, Princess?" Edward asked as they strolled among the ancient oak trees. "Yes," she replied with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's been a long time since I've been here. We can come whenever you want now." Annabelle nodded, but something in her expression revealed she didn't fully believe the promise. "Will it last?" she asked suddenly, stopping. "What, sweetheart? This you being home, the walks without her?" Edward's heart ached at the genuine doubt on his daughter's face. How could he regain the trust of a child who had been repeatedly betrayed by the adults who were supposed to protect her? "It will last, Annabelle. I promise. And I know promises don't mean much to you right now after everything you've been through, but I'm going to prove it with my actions, day after day." What if she comes back? The question revealed Annabelle's greatest fear, that Camilla would somehow return to her life and resume control. "She is not coming back, sweetheart, ever, you have my word." But she said she would come back, that no one could stop her. Edward knelt to be at his daughter's level, holding her gently by the shoulders. "Annabelle, look at me. Camilla will never get near you again. There are laws and powerful people protecting us now. She can't enter our house, she can't pick you up from school, she can't even talk to you on the phone. And if she tries, she will be punished severely." The girl absorbed his words, thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Anything, Princess. Why did you marry her? Was she always like that?" The question caught Edward off guard. How to explain to a 7-year-old the complexity of adult relationships, the emotional needs that led him to seek companionship after Marianne's hospitalization, the superficial charm Camilla had wielded, presenting herself as a strong, capable woman, exactly what he believed he needed at the time. No, she wasn't like that at the beginning, he finally answered. "Or maybe she was and I just couldn't see it. I was very lonely after your mother had to go get treatment, and Camilla seemed to fill a void. It was a mistake for which you paid a very high price, and for that I am deeply sorry." "Do you still like her?" Annabelle asked, with the brutal honesty only children possess. "No," Edward replied without hesitation. "I can't like someone who hurt the most important person in my life." The answer seemed to satisfy Annabelle, who resumed walking, still holding her father's hand but with slightly lighter steps. As they returned home, Edward made his decision. He called Henry as soon as Annabelle was asleep. "We're going ahead with the criminal proceedings," he informed the lawyer. "Annabelle needs to see that there are consequences for what Camilla did, and other children need to be protected. I understand your decision. I'll prepare everything. It will be a grueling process, Edward. Camilla will come at you with everything she has, try to destroy your reputation, question Annabelle's credibility. I'm prepared, and more importantly, I will prepare Annabelle. I will not allow her to be re-victimized in this process." Henry's predictions soon proved correct. As soon as she was formally charged with abuse against her stepdaughter, Camilla began a systematic smear campaign against Edward. Through her network of social contacts, she spread rumors that he was an absent and negligent father who had manipulated his daughter against her out of jealousy of her charitable work in the community. Local papers published subtle notes questioning Edward's sudden concern for his daughter after years of prioritizing international business. Insinuations about possible financial interests behind the accusations began to circulate. Camilla also legally contested the evidence presented, claiming the recordings were made illegally and that the marks on Annabelle's body were the result of normal childhood play. The battle in the courts promised to be long and exhausting. Edward, however, stood firm, shielding Annabelle as much as possible from media exposure and ensuring her recovery routine was not interrupted. 2 weeks after the formal process began, Edward received an unexpected visit. Rita, Marianne's younger sister and Annabelle's aunt, arrived at the mansion unannounced. "I heard what happened," she said, as soon as she was received in the living room. "Why didn't you call me immediately, Edward?" Rita was a woman with a strong personality, much like her older sister in temperament and appearance. She lived in New York City, where she worked as a photojournalist, which kept her constantly traveling. "It all happened so fast, Rita, we're still adjusting." "Where's Annabelle? I need to see her." "She's at her therapy session. She'll be back in an hour." Rita paced back and forth, visibly agitated. "I always suspected that woman. The first time I saw her with Annabelle, I noticed something wrong in her eyes. I tried to warn you, remember?" "I remember," Edward admitted, "and I didn't listen. I thought it was jealousy or spite." "The important thing is that Annabelle is safe now," Rita conceded, finally sitting down. "How is she?" "Getting better, little by little. She still has nightmares, still checks the doors at night to make sure they're not locked, still gets startled by raised voices. But the therapy is helping, and being with people who truly care about her makes all the difference. I want to help, Edward, in any way I can." "Actually, there is something you can do. Annabelle has mentioned several times wanting to see her mother. So I know Marianne's situation is delicate, but maybe—" "She's much better," Rita interrupted. "The new medications are working. She's having longer and longer periods of lucidity." "Would a supervised visit be possible? With medical oversight, of course." "I think it would be important for Annabelle to know that her mother didn't voluntarily abandon her. I'll check with the doctors. If they approve, I'll do my best to arrange it." When Annabelle returned from therapy and found her aunt in the living room, her reaction was one of pure joy, the first truly positive emotion Edward had seen in his daughter since the whole crisis began. "Aunt Rita," she exclaimed, running into the woman's arms, "you got my note." Edward and Rita exchanged surprised glances. "What note, sweetie?" Rita asked. "The one I wrote asking you to take me away from here. I put it with the cleaning supplies because I knew she would never look there." "Oh, Annabelle," Rita hugged her niece tightly. "I didn't receive any note. I came because I heard what happened. But I'm here now, and I'm going to help you and your father get through this." "Are you staying?" the girl asked hopefully. "For a few days, yes. And then who knows, we can arrange for you to visit me in New York." "I'd love that." Annabelle's eyes shone with the possibility of a positive adventure. That night, after Annabelle had fallen asleep, Rita and Edward talked at length about the next steps. "She needs stability now," Rita observed, "but also joy, positive experiences to counterbalance the trauma." "I agree. That's why I'm thinking of reviving some of Marianne's old projects. She always wanted to turn part of the garden into a community. Vegetable patch, remember? Something Annabelle could tend to and watch grow." "That's an excellent idea. Marianne would love to know her project is being brought to life by her daughter." "Rita," Edward began hesitantly, "do you really think a reunion between Annabelle and Marianne is possible? I don't want to create expectations and then disappoint her. I'll be honest, Marianne has good days and bad days, but even on her bad days she always asks about Annabelle. Her love for her daughter never diminished, it was just obscured by her illness. I believe a carefully planned meeting could be beneficial for both of them. I'll talk to Annabelle's psychologist about it. If she approves, we can try." Rita's presence brought a renewed energy to the mansion. With her vibrant and creative personality, she introduced playful activities that gradually helped Annabelle reconnect with the child she had been forced to suppress. Together they painted, played, cooked, simple things that Camilla had denied the girl in the name of a refined education. At the end of the week, when Rita had to return to New York, Annabelle did not show the despair Edward had. Feared, but a mature understanding that her aunt would be back soon. "She will come back, right, Dad?" she asked as they waved to the departing car. "Definitely. And soon maybe we can visit her." "I'd like that," Annabelle replied with a small smile. "Aunt Rita said we're going to see Mommy one of these days. Is that true?" Edward hesitated for only a second. "We're working on it, Princess. Your mother is getting treatment, getting stronger so she can see you. Does she still love me?" "More than anything in the world." "Never doubt that." The months that followed were a time of rebuilding and healing. The Ashton mansion once a place of oppression and forced silence, gradually transformed into a home. The heavy curtains were replaced with lighter fabrics, allowing natural light to flood in. The gardens, once impeccably geometric, gained a wilder section where Annabelle could play and get dirty without fear of reprisal. The routine also changed drastically. The excessive private lessons gave way to a more balanced education. After careful selection, Edward enrolled Annabelle in a progressive school in Charleston, where the emphasis was on the child's holistic development, not just academic performance. The first few days were a difficult adjustment. The girl was unaccustomed to interacting with other children and feared judgment for her withdrawn behavior. "How was your day today?" Edward asked, picking Annabelle up after her third day of school. "Different," she replied thoughtfully. "There are a lot of people. And noise. And is that bad?" Annabelle considered the question for a moment. "No, just different." Gradually, with the continued support of the school staff, who were duly informed of the student's traumatic situation, Annabelle began to form friendships. The first was with Sophia, a girl with a gentle personality, who patiently included Annabelle in all activities, respecting her pace. At home, Edward's constant presence made all the difference. He completely reorganized his professional schedule, delegating trips to associates and conducting most meetings by video conference. The evenings were sacred, dinner with Annabelle, helping her with homework, reading stories before bed. A simple routine, but essential for rebuilding shaken trust. Mrs. Josephine, now officially in charge of managing the house, created a warm and predictable environment, exactly what Annabelle needed after months of emotional instability. Mr. August remained a constant protective presence, especially on the rare occasions Edward had to be away. Meanwhile, in the legal background, the battle with Camilla intensified. As Henry had predicted, she used every possible tactic to discredit the accusations and damage Edward's image. She even hired a private detective to investigate his personal and professional life, looking for any slip-up that could be used to her advantage. "She's desperate," Henry commented during a meeting in the mansion's office. "The evidence against her is too solid, so now she's trying to disqualify you as a father." "Any progress on the investigation into the medications?" Edward asked. "Yes, and it's significant. We've managed to trace the purchases. Camilla was acquiring the sedatives from a compounding pharmacy, using a forged prescription, with the name of a doctor who isn't even registered with the state board. That's another crime for the list. And the divorce. She's contesting all the terms, especially the division of assets. She claims she was the victim of a conspiracy to separate her from the Ashton fortune." Edward sighed wearily. "Keep pressing, Henry. The more cornered she feels, the more mistakes she'll make." Edward's prediction proved to be accurate. 2 weeks later, Camilla made a strategic error that changed the course of the proceedings. Frustrated with how things were going, she tried to make direct contact with Annabelle outside the school. Fortunately, the security team hired by Edward was alert and prevented her approach. The incident, however, was recorded by security cameras and witnessed by teachers and other parents, constituting a clear violation of the active protective order. "This is exactly what we needed," Henry said when he received the recording. She not only disobeyed a court order, but also showed a complete disregard for Annabelle's psychological well-being. The judge overseeing the case acted swiftly. Camilla was summoned to a special hearing to explain the violation. Her lawyer, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried a last resort. He proposed a deal. "They want to negotiate," Henry reported during a phone call. "Camilla is willing to admit to errors in handling discipline in exchange for dropping the criminal charges and a more favorable division of assets in the divorce." "Not a chance," Edward replied firmly. "What she did wasn't a disciplinary error. It was systematic abuse of a defenseless child. There is no deal possible. I figured you'd say that, and I completely agree." The outcome was swift and decisive. Camilla was placed in preventive custody for violating a protective order and obstruction of justice. The news inevitably leaked to the local press, turning what was a private family drama into a case of public interest. "How do I tell Annabelle this?" Edward asked Dr. Louise, his daughter's psychologist. "With honesty, but without unnecessary details," she advised. "Annabelle needs to know that Camilla is facing consequences for her actions. but she doesn't need to carry the weight of the situation. That night, after dinner, Edward sat with his daughter on the porch, now their favorite spot in the house. The stars were beginning to appear in the Charleston sky, and the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze created a tranquil atmosphere. "Annabelle, I need to talk to you about something important," he began. The girl looked at him attentively, her large, serious eyes in a face still childish, but already marked by experiences no child should have. "It's about her, isn't it?" Annabelle asked, demonstrating the keen perception children develop when they go through trauma. "Yes, Princess. Camilla tried to approach you at school yesterday." The girl's eyes widened in alarm. "I didn't see her." "I know." Security stopped her. "But because of that, she's been detained. That means she's in the custody of the law and won't be able to try to approach you again." Annabelle processed the information in silence for a few moments. "Is she in jail?" Edward hesitated, searching for the best way to explain. "Temporarily, yes, because she broke the rules the judge set." "For how long?" "We don't know yet, honey. But the important thing is that you are completely safe now." Annabelle nodded slowly, then asked in a low voice, "Does that make me a bad person?" "What, of course not." Edward hugged her tightly. "Why would you think that?" "Because I'm not sad that she's in jail. I don't feel anything, just relieved." Edward pulled back slightly to look into his daughter's eyes. "Annabelle, your feelings are completely normal and valid. You went through terrible things at her hands. Feeling relieved doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who is healing." The small smile Annabelle offered in response warmed Edward's heart. The journey would be long, but they were on the right path. 2 weeks later, Rita called with news Edward had been anxiously awaiting. "The doctors have approved the visit," she reported, barely containing her excitement. "Marianne is having a string of good days. They believe seeing Annabelle could be beneficial for both of them." "That's wonderful, Rita. When can we go?" "This weekend would be ideal. Can I book flights for you?" "Please. And thank you for everything you've done." Telling Annabelle the news was a delicate moment. Edward feared creating expectations that could lead to disappointment, but he also knew his daughter deserved honesty. "Annabelle," he called during breakfast the next day, "I have some very special news. We're going on a trip to New York City this weekend." The girl's eyes lit up with excitement. "Are we going to visit Aunt Rita?" "Yes, and not just her. Your mother is there too, remember? And she's much better now, well enough to have us visit." The fork Annabelle was holding clattered onto her plate. Her expression quickly shifted from surprise to joy, then to anxiety. "I'm going to see Mommy." "Yes, Princess, what I mean, but what if she doesn't recognize me? What if she doesn't like me anymore?" Edward got up and knelt beside his daughter's chair. "Your mother has never stopped loving you, Annabelle. Even on her hardest days, when she couldn't even take care of herself, she always asked about you. She has your picture by her bed. Rita says it's the first thing she looks at when she wakes up." Tears began to stream down the girl's face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of an emotion too deep to be contained otherwise. "Can I bring her a present?" she finally asked. "Of course you can. What would you like to bring?" "A drawing. I'm going to make the most beautiful one I can." In the days leading up to the trip, Annabelle worked diligently on her drawing. It was a colorful depiction of the family. Her father, her mother, Aunt Rita, Mrs. Josephine, and Mr. August, all holding hands in front of a sunny house. The message was clear in its childlike simplicity. These were the people she loved, and who formed her circle of protection. The trip to New York went smoothly. Rita met them at the airport, hugging Annabelle for long minutes before leading them to the car. "How is Marianne today?" Edward asked as they drove to the clinic on the outskirts of the city. "She's having a good day," Rita replied. "She woke up early, got dressed by herself, even asked to buy flowers to decorate her room. She knows you're coming." "Does she understand the situation?" "About Annabelle. What happened?" Rita shook her head. "I only told her the essentials. That Annabelle is living with you, that things with Camilla didn't work out, that everyone is fine now. Details about the abuse could destabilize her." "I understand. We'll follow your lead." The clinic where Marianne was staying did not look like a traditional medical institution. It was a large colonial-style house, surrounded by well-kept gardens and a welcoming atmosphere. More like a luxury inn than a psychiatric hospital. "It's pretty here," Annabelle commented, looking out the window as they parked. "Your mother loves the gardens," Rita explained. "She spends hours tending to the flowers." They were greeted at the entrance by Dr. Beatrice Scott, the physician in charge of Marianne's treatment. "Welcome," she greeted them warmly. "Marianne is very much looking forward to this meeting. We've prepared everything to make it as comfortable as possible, but I'd like to set a few guidelines." Edward nodded, holding tight to Annabelle's hand, who seemed increasingly nervous. "The meeting will be in the sunroom, a quiet and familiar environment for Marianne. I suggest letting the conversation flow naturally without pressure. If at any point you notice she's becoming agitated or anxious, we'll take a break." "Understood, Doctor. We'll follow your instructions." "Great. One more thing. Marianne has made great progress, but she's still in recovery. There may be moments of confusion or memory lapses. It's important not to show alarm or disappointment if that happens." Annabelle squeezed her father's hand tighter. The reality of the meeting, with all its uncertainties, was beginning to weigh on her. "Are you okay, Princess?" Edward asked. "If you'd rather, we can do this another day." The girl took a deep breath, showing a courage that moved everyone. "I'm ready, Daddy. I want to see Mommy." Dr. Scott smiled affectionately. "You are very brave, Annabelle. Your mother is going to be so proud." The sunroom was a charming space, bright thanks to the large windows filled with tropical plants and comfortably furnished with armchairs and small tea tables. In one corner, a woman with her back to them was arranging flowers in a ceramic vase. "Marianne," Dr. Scott called softly, "your family has arrived." The woman turned slowly. Despite the years and the illness, Marianne Ashton still possessed the serene beauty that had once enchanted Edward. Her brown hair was shorter now, and there was a new fragility in her movements, but her eyes, identical to Annabelle's, shone with the same intensity as ever. "Edward," she recognized him immediately with a small smile. Then her gaze moved to the girl beside him, and her entire expression transformed. Anna. It was the nickname only she used, unspoken for so many years, that Annabelle had almost forgotten it. "Mommy?" The girl's voice was almost a whisper. Marianne opened her arms, and Annabelle, after a moment's hesitation, ran to her. The embrace that followed was so powerful in its simplicity that all the adults present felt tears in their eyes. "My girl," Marianne murmured, stroking her daughter's hair, "how you've grown, how beautiful you are." "I missed you so much," Annabelle sobbed, clinging to her mother as if afraid she would disappear again. "I missed you too, my love, every single day." Edward watched the scene, his heart overflowing with contradictory emotions: joy for the reunion, grief for the lost years, guilt for not having acted sooner, hope for what was to come. The meeting proceeded with surprising naturalness. Marianne, though visibly emotional, remained stable and present. She listened intently as Annabelle talked about school, her new friends, the swimming lessons she had started. The girl, in turn, blossomed before everyone's eyes. She spoke more, smiled more, gestured with a long, suppressed expressiveness. "I brought you something," Annabelle said finally, carefully taking the drawing from the folder she carried. Marianne received the gift with reverence, studying every detail with tear-filled eyes. "It's our family," the girl explained, "all together." "It's perfect," Marianne replied, hugging the drawing to her chest. "I'm going to hang it right in front of my bed so it's the first thing I see every day." When it was time to leave, Annabelle was reluctant. "Can we come back tomorrow?" she asked Edward. "Of course we can, and then soon we'll come back for a longer stay. Your mother needs to rest now," Dr. Scott explained gently, "but I'm sure she's looking forward to the next meeting." "I'll be waiting," Marianne promised, holding her daughter's hands. "And every day I'll be stronger. Soon, who knows, I might be able to visit you in Charleston." Annabelle's eyes widened. "Really? You'd come?" "As soon as the doctors allow it," Marianne confirmed. "I want to see your school, your friends, see your room." The farewell, though emotionally intense, was serene. Annabelle left the clinic with an expression of peace Edward had never seen on her face. On the way back to Rita's apartment, Annabel remained silent, processing the experience. "What? Did you think of seeing your mother?" Edward finally asked. "It was different than I imagined," the girl replied thoughtfully. "In my memories she was bigger and her voice was different, but her hug was the same." "You remember her hugs well?" "Yes," Annabel smiled to herself. "It's the thing I remember most." For the rest of the weekend in New York, they visited Marianne daily. Each meeting was a little longer, a little more relaxed, as both mother and daughter grew accustomed to each other's presence again. On the last visit, Dr. Scott invited Edward for a private conversation, while Rita accompanied Marianne and Annabel on a walk through the gardens. "I have positive news," the doctor began. "The meetings with Annabel have had a remarkably beneficial effect on Marianne's condition. Her response to medication has improved, and she's showing a renewed motivation for her treatment." "That's wonderful, doctor. Based on this progress, I'm considering beginning to plan for an assisted discharge within a few months." Edward's eyes widened in surprise. "Discharge? Does that mean she could?" "Yes, eventually return to an independent life. With ongoing support, of course, and a suitable environment." "What would be required for that suitable environment?" "Stability, a predictable routine, an absence of significant stressors, constant family support. Basically, the opposite of what was likely in her life before hospitalization." Edward nodded thoughtfully. "I can provide all of that. I have the resources, the time, the will. Marianne deserves this chance. It's important not to create premature expectations. We're talking about possibilities for the future, not immediate certainties." "I understand perfectly, but knowing there's a path, that already means a great deal." When they returned to Charleston, Edward noticed a significant change in Annabel. It was as if an invisible weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She smiled more easily, spoke with more confidence, and her drawings were once again colorful and full of life. In the next session with Dr. Louise, the psychologist also noted the transformation. "Seeing her mother seems to have closed an important loop for Annabel," she commented during her feedback with Edward. "The narrative Camilla built, that her mother had voluntarily abandoned her, was deeply damaging to her self-esteem. I see that now. Camilla systematically erased Marianne from Annabel's life, even forbidding any mention of her name." "Exactly. And now that Annabel has been able to see for herself that her mother loves her and never abandoned her by choice, a deep wound has begun to heal." This healing became even more evident in the following weeks, as the nightmares that still occasionally plagued Annabel became rarer until they stopped completely. The girl also began to excel in school, especially in art and literature, areas that Camilla had considered a waste of time and had actively discouraged. 3 months after the first visit to New York, Edward received the call he had been secretly awaiting. "Dr. Scott has authorized Marianne's visit to Charleston," Rita announced, barely containing her excitement. "Just for a weekend, with me, accompanying her constantly, but it's a start." "That's incredible, Rita. When?" "In 2 weeks. I'm taking care of all the logistical details. You just need to prepare Annabel and the house." "Annabel will be ecstatic. As for the house, well, I already have some ideas." The news was met by Annabel with an explosion of joy that confirmed to Edward they were on the right path. Immediately, the girl wanted to help with the preparations, choosing flowers for the guest room, setting aside books and games she could show her mother, even planning a small tour of her favorite places in Charleston. The Ashton mansion, already transformed by Camilla's absence, underwent more subtle changes. Edward made a point of restoring elements he knew held special meaning for Marianne: the piano she loved to play, family portraits that had been banned by Camilla, even the swing in the garden where she used to rock Annabel as a baby. On the day of their arrival, the anticipation was palpable. Annabel changed her outfit 3 times, undecided on which dress her mother would like best. Edward repeatedly checked every detail of the house, wanting everything to be perfect. Even Mr. August and Mrs. Josephine showed an unusual excitement, preparing Marianne's favorite dishes and arranging fresh flowers in every room. When the car finally pulled into the driveway, Annabel couldn't contain herself and ran outside before the engine was even turned off. Marianne, getting out of the passenger seat with Rita's help, opened her arms to receive her daughter's enthusiastic hug. "Welcome home," Edward said, approaching more slowly, still unsure how Marianne would react to him after so many years. She looked at the mansion, then at him with a soft smile. "Thank you for having me, Edward, for everything." That weekend was one of those rare, precious moments that are etched in memory forever. Marianne, though still visibly fragile and occasionally tired, was present in a way Edward hadn't seen in many years. She laughed with Annabelle, played the piano for her, told stories from when she was little. Together, they planted flowers in the garden, made cookies in the kitchen with Mrs. Josephine's help, and spent hours just talking, making up for years of forced absence. The night before their departure, while Annabelle was already asleep, Edward found Marianne on the porch, watching the stars. "Is everything okay?" he asked, hesitant. "Better than it's been in a long time," she replied, turning to face him. "Thank you, Edward." "For what?" "For taking care of her when I couldn't, for finally realizing what Camilla was doing, for giving us this chance to reconnect." Edward sat down beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I should have noticed sooner. I should have been more present. If I had—" "No, Edward," Marianne interrupted. "We can't live on what-ifs. We all make mistakes. I ignored my depression for too long. You drowned yourself in work. We both allowed other people to fill the voids we created. But what matters is that we're here now trying to fix things. You were always the wiser one between us," he smiled. "I don't know about wisdom, but I've learned a lot about the value of time in recent years. Every moment with Annabelle this weekend has been precious. Seeing the wonderful girl she is becoming, despite everything, that's a miracle, Edward. A miracle we now have the chance to watch grow." When Rita and Marianne left the next afternoon, there wasn't the sense of final separation that had marked previous goodbyes. There was instead an implicit promise of new meetings, of a gradual and continuous reconnection. "Come back soon, Mummy," Annabelle pleaded, hugging Marianne one last time before she got in the car. "I will, my love. And in the meantime, we can talk on the phone and on video calls. I'm not going to disappear again." In the months that followed, that promise was kept. Marianne called regularly, actively participated in Annabelle's life even from a distance, and visited whenever her health condition allowed. In parallel, the criminal case against Camilla came to an end. Convicted of abuse, improper administration of medication, and forgery of medical documents, she received a significant sentence that, even with mitigating factors, would ensure she remained far from Annabelle for many years. The divorce was finalized on terms Edward considered more than fair. He gave Camilla a considerable portion of his personal assets, but ensured that the mansion and all assets related to Annabelle remained untouched. For him, no price was too high for his daughter's safety and well-being. One autumn afternoon, nearly a year after Camilla's removal from the mansion, Edward received a call from Dr. Scott. "I have important news. Mr. Ashton, Marianne is officially eligible for assisted discharge. She will continue with medication and therapy, but she can return to an independent life, provided it's in a suitable environment." "That's wonderful, Doctor. I already have everything prepared." In the preceding weeks, Edward had bought and renovated a comfortable house just a few blocks from the mansion. The perfect place for Marianne to start over, close enough for frequent visits with Annabelle, but with the independence necessary for her continued recovery. When Edward told Annabelle the news, the girl's reaction was more subdued than he expected. "Mommy is going to live here in Charleston." "Near us?" she asked, processing the information. "Yes, Princess." "I thought you'd be more excited." Annabelle bit her lip, thoughtful. "I'm happy, Daddy, very. I'm just thinking." "About what, honey?" "She's going to live in another house? Not here with us?" Edward knelt to be at his daughter's eye level. "I thought it would be better this way at first. Your mother is still recovering. She needs routine, tranquility. But she'll be very close. You can visit her whenever you want. She'll come visit us too." "I understand," Annabelle replied, seeming older than her 8 years. "It's just, I dreamed so much of all of us being together again." Edward felt a pang in his chest. Of course, Annabelle dreamed of her family reunited, just like in the drawing she had made. It was the natural desire of any child. "Annabelle, things between your mother and me are complicated. We separated a long time ago, even before she got sick. But that doesn't mean we can't be a family, just in a different way. The girl nodded, absorbing the explanation. Like Sophia's family. Her parents live in different houses, but they both love her and do things together sometimes. Exactly like that, Edward smiled, admiring his daughter's maturity. What's important is the love, not where everyone lives. On the day of Marianne's move to Charleston, a small reception was organized at the new house. Rita, who had decided to stay in the city for a few weeks to help with the transition, coordinated the details. Annabelle, excited about her role as hostess, helped decorate the space with flowers and balloons. When Marianne finally arrived, accompanied by Dr. Scott, who would be making regular visits, the house already felt like a home. On the walls, Edward had hung photos of Annabelle at different stages, a visual mural of the lost years that Marianne could now contemplate. "It's perfect," she declared, moved. "More than I deserved." "It's exactly what you deserve," Edward corrected. A new beginning. As the weeks passed, a new routine was established. Marianne would come for dinner at the mansion twice a week. On Saturdays, Edward would take Annabelle to spend the day at her mother's house. Occasionally, the three of them would go out together for a picnic in the park, a movie, a walk through the historic district. To strangers, they looked like a conventional family. In a way, they had become something even more precious, a family rebuilt through pain, learning and love. On one of these Saturday afternoons, while Marianne and Annabelle were planting flowers in the small garden of the new house, Edward watched from a distance, reflecting on the extraordinary journey they had traveled. "What are you thinking about?" Rita asked, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. "About how much everything has changed in a year," he replied, accepting the drink. "How we were on the brink of an abyss without realizing it, and how we found our way back." "Thanks to the courage of many people," Rita observed. "Mr. August and Mrs. Josephine, who risked their jobs. Francesca, who persisted despite Camilla's threats. You, who had the humility to admit your mistakes. And especially Annabelle, who, though so young, never stopped resisting in her own way. It's true. A year ago, I thought I was losing everything. My reputation, my assets, maybe even my freedom. Today, I realize I've gained what truly matters." At that moment, Annabelle looked over at them and waved enthusiastically, her face lit by a genuine smile. Beside her, Marianne was also smiling, stronger and healthier than Edward had seen her in years. "I think we all won," Rita commented, especially Annabelle. "She now has what every child deserves, adults who protect her, who love her unconditionally, who put her needs above their personal interests." Edward nodded, watching his daughter proudly show her mother the sunflower, seedlings she had planted. The same flowers Camilla had forbidden for being too common for the refined. Mansion garden. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Where there was once control, there was now freedom. Where there was fear, there was now security. Where there was forced silence, there were now laughs. The transformation was visible not only in the environment, but especially in Annabelle. Her bright eyes, her relaxed posture, her clear and confident voice. The Ashton mansion, once a gilded cage, had finally become a home, and the silence that now sometimes permeated it was no longer the oppressive silence of fear, but the comfortable silence of peace. "I think it's time I joined them," Edward said, placing his empty cup on the table. "I promised Annabelle I'd help with the fence for the flower bed." "Go on," Rita smiled. "Your family is waiting." Edward walked toward Marianne and Annabelle, feeling a deep gratitude for this second chance. The future, once dark and uncertain, now opened before them, full of possibilities. It wouldn't be perfect. There would still be challenges, adjustments, perhaps even relapses in Marianne's case. But they would face it all together, with the strength that only those who have been to the abyss and returned can know. Annabelle lifted her dirt-streaked face and smiled at her approaching father. A smile that held promises of healing, of growth, of a future where the shadows of the past would be just that, shadows, growing ever more distant as they walked toward the light. And so, under the Charleston sun, a family was reborn, not from the ashes, but from the courage of those who refused to remain, silent in the face of injustice, who dared to believe that love is stronger than fear, that the truth, however painful, is always the only path to true healing.